What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today, we're going to be talking about the current banner heroes, Politis, as well as Tywin. And y'all, to all my cleave players out there, it's going to be a little bit rough. Y'all will have to adapt to Politis because she's definitely doing her job as an anti-cleave unit. So my heart goes out to y'all. But if you do like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. As always, I like to start the video by giving you guys a summary of the units as well as what you can expect coming in the future and something you need to be aware of. So even though Politis does look like a very good unit and someone you should consider highly pulling, do remember that there's a really good chance that next week is going to be something new. So I would wait to see the announcement for next week. She's still out for 2 weeks. There's no rush to get her. If you're free to play and have low bookmark resources and are waiting for reruns like Cerise or Diani, make sure you still have bookmarks enough to pull those limiteds because there's a really good chance they'll be coming, and you can wait till the last day of Politis' banner to know if you want to pull for them, right? So just know that they're right around the corner. It's gonna come, right? And don't get spooked by it and not be prepared for it. But now, as far as the unit as a whole, she's doing her job as an anti-cleave unit very, very well, while also having other uses besides just countering cleave, even though that's going to be her primary purpose. She can also do really good against aggressive teams that rely on Falconeer Flurry, because Falconeer Flurry, again, it's a really strong S3, but if they're getting hit with an S2 from Politis and getting stunned, that's rough, right? So she still does pretty good against Falconeer Flurry. She has a pretty good matchup against Tisuren and Arbiter Vildred, depending on the team that you're taking. She is going to be reliant on the team that you bring her in, but against a cleave team, it puts a lot of pressure on the cleaver. She herself can stop a cleave, so which is why she's a very strong anti-cleave, but in other teams will require a team. As far as whether or not you should pull for her, if you struggle with cleave, I highly recommend you pull for her. She does the job very, very well, particularly early game players, because a lot of the other cleave counters require a lot of investment. She doesn't. You do not need to give her insane gear for her to work properly. Just okay gear will let her function as a cleave counter. So highly suggest you do that. She also seems like a very strong arena defense unit and has a massive ceiling because of how strong the passive is, that in the future she could be very, very powerful as more units get introduced. Definitely a unit you want to consider pulling. Definitely very, very strong. As far as Tywin, he's just a nice option for cleave teams. I wouldn't say he's a must-have. Bazaar Cleave isn't as popular anymore, but if you're still running Bazaar Cleave, he's still really, really good for that Bazaar Cleave. Primarily a cleave unit. You can also use them in like slow cleave, which I know a couple of my cleave friends do use them in slow cleaves. Overall, should you pull for him? He's more of a fun unit at this point. There are other options for cleaving, but can still be used, right? So if you still want to use him for cleaving, he's still a good option, especially because he doesn't have a skill. Oh, he does. That's too will be countered by Politis, so you do have to know that. But it's pretty nice to have the cleave with Tywin, although not as good as he used to be. So I would personally not pull for him unless you really like the option. But now let's go dive deep into each of the units, starting with Politis, since it's the one that everyone's here about. She is going to be a mage, and as we know, mages have access to some of the most broken artifacts in the game, just by nature, right? So they have access to things like Lila Violin for stripping, and for Politis in particular, Abyssal Crown, which just makes her so much more threatening and so much of a stronger unit because you're able to stun with how much AoE you have. It does appear to be the best artifact for her right now, but we may see in the future what other people try to test out on her. As far as stats, very traditional mage stats, right? Not the greatest HP. It's actually on the low side. Attack is pretty nice overall. It's actually not bad attack stat. It's actually on the higher side. The speed is pretty slow. It's slower than Bazaar. It's 106. A lot of things will outspeed her, but we'll see. You don't really need that much speed. You need around like 230 plus max to counter cleave. She only really needs like 220, right? But 106 is going to be on the lower side. Defense is going to be good, which again, very traditional mages to have this high of a defense. And she does have extremely high starting effectiveness, which is weird because she doesn't necessarily need the effectiveness, especially if you're using her against anti-cleave. Now, if you're using it against tank teams or like Tisuren teams, since she can cut Tisuren's advantage state, then you might want to consider getting her more effectiveness. But she does start with very high, and both her awakenings are effectiveness. So theoretically, if you get a triple SS Politis, you already have a 57% effectiveness unit, which is insane. That's insane. That's so much effectiveness. As far as skills, so overall, she looks pretty cool. I like the design. The storyline was really, really sad and dark. Like, Epic Silent storyline has gotten really dark recently. But she looks good, right? She looks pretty good, right? She looks cool. The S1 is going to be very disruptive and very traditional. It's just a stun. 40% chance to stun. Not the super highest, but not bad either. It's actually nothing to laugh at, right? It's pretty annoying to get stunned on an S1. And when you add in the RNG from Abyssal Crown, if you have a max Abyssal Crown, that means that you have almost a little bit over 50% chance of hitting this. So every time you S1, that's a 50-50 that you're either landing this stun or Abyssal Crown, which is really good, right? So it's pretty annoying. It's very disruptive, and if they don't have immunity, you can definitely do a lot of work on them. See? It's kind of almost a 50-50. Now the S2. This is why I say she's a cleave counter, and why she can also do other things against other things, like Falcon your Flurry, is because of this. It's a very stacked passive. Essentially, what this is going to do is reduce combat readiness boosting effects by 50%. When you think Discern, she boosts 30% when she goes to stealth. This only makes it be 15. Faithless Lytica pushes the team by 20%. This makes it be 10%. Oxlots will only push by 50%. Faithless Lytica will only push herself up by 50%. When RB revives, he's only pushing himself up by 50%, which is why she can actually be used to counter Arbiter Villager in certain team compositions, right? So there's a lot of potential in this skill. It cuts things like General Purgus. It cuts things like Rowana. Like, the list goes on and on and on units that this actually interacts with. There's a lot of CR pushing in this game. But, of course, this of hitting cleaves the hardest, since they often do rely on that CR push. At least the traditional cleaves do, right? With Oxlots, Faithless Lytica, Sidon. Oxlots can still get 50%, which is a lot of push, which essentially will give a turn to most units, but he has to watch out for the other part of her S2, which is where you see why she can be really strong against Oxlots. Tranquility, it's a skill that when they use a non-attack skill, so you have to think Falconeer Clary's S3, that is a non-attack skill, or things like Oxlot's S2 or Sedom's S3, it will proc her S2, which is an AoE attack that reduces buff duration, which means that she will be stripping immunity sets off with this skill, and grants her 30% combat readiness, which allows her to cut in to a lot of different teams. So when you look at the skill, at first it seems very strong against anti-cleave, but then you realize it has a much higher ceiling. Things like Lilius. When Lilius S3s, Lilius only gets 25% combat readiness push. When Cerise does her S2, she only gets 25. It is going to be interacting with a lot of different things in this game that you don't realize how much of an impact CR pushing actually does on the game until you actually see her in action. And I highly recommend you watch Deity's video. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Deity. But Deity's video showcasing her. He does a very good job of showing you a wide variety of teams, not just anti-cleaving, which is why she does have a very high ceiling in the future, especially when you pair her up with other units. The other thing is that this skill is going to be very, very strong because she's a mage and has access to Abyssal Crown. This AoE skill not only can strip, but if they don't have immunity, which a lot of cleave teams don't, particularly a lot of Sedoms, you are going to be stunning them. The other thing is, this doesn't matter if they have immunity or not. This passive will always trigger on them. It's a lot of ceiling that she has. The ability to be able to cut into cleave teams, stopping Oxlots, making sure that they're not getting as much combat readiness pushing. It just really, really hurts cleave teams and lets you set up into everything else. Then, to top it all off, the ultimate. It is another AoE skill on a 4-turn cooldown that has a 100% chance to decrease hit chance and apply unable to be buffed. So again, think of Oxlots. If they do the S2, you cut in, you hit them with this, you potentially stun them with Abyssal Crown, you get yourself your 30%, and then you come in with your S3 and apply unable to be buffed. That team is pretty much gone. They're done. They're not going to do anything with decreased hit chance and unable to be buffed. So very, very powerful S3. Again, another AoE skill allowing you to do more Abyssal Crown procs. So overall, what I think about her. At worst, she's a very strong cleave counter to the traditional cleave, to the Sedom, Oxlots, at Faithless Lytica cleave teams, because they do rely on the CR pushing a lot. At best, she's a unit that shuts down a lot of advantage, that's very versatile against any unit that uses combat readiness boost, and is very, very disruptive because of the Abyssal Crown interactions that she has, making Abyssal Crown pretty important on her to get the most out of it. One thing you do have to realize is that she's going to be a team style unit. If you want to get more out of her and to counter cleave, you are going to want to include other units, of course, to get the most out of your anti-cleaving. Like if you put her and Sage Ball in RTA, they have to ban one or the other, right? And all the other things, you are in control against a cleave team, right? But a lot of people are like, oh, I just put Politis and it didn't work, right? While she often can do it by herself, you do need a little, like one more unit to help you out and make sure you solidify and things go wrong. But the team aspect of her goes further up as you start to realize the potential that she has against things like Arbiter Vildred, against T. Surin, where she can cut their CR pushing. So again, very, very high skill unit. Very, very high ceiling. Has a lot of different build paths. Although I do believe the tanky build is going to be the best one. Fast and tanky. You don't even need that much effectiveness. If you do manage to get a lot of effectiveness, that's fine. But I think capitalizing on speed and tankiness, it's what you are going to want to do. Some people are going to try to go with for a little bit more damage to potentially be able to kill the cleaves off with the 2 attacks that she's able to do. But overall, a huge heat to cleave teams. It is going to be very, very strong. And the reason why I suggest you pull for it, even if you're earlier on and you have the resources, of course, to pull the limited later, is because cleave has a lot of variants, and having another option to counter them is really good, especially because she doesn't require that much, right? She doesn't need any Molagora for this S2. She doesn't really need any Molagora for this S3, to be honest, right? She does her job with minimum Mola requirement and minimum gear requirement. As long as you can hit like decent tank stats at 230 speed or even 220 speed, you're going to be doing fine, right? Not like Celine, who requires a lot more. So very, very low investment, high reward unit, and cleave is very prevalent in the lower tiers of arena. I know a lot of people do struggle against cleave teams in low arena, and she can definitely help in that department. But now, quickly going over our boy Tywin. I do have one. I used to use him. I don't use him anymore. He's going to be pretty standard knight. Decent HP, decent defense, good effectiveness, which matches his kit, and actually really good speed, right? Which does, again, go very well with his kit. He also does have an exclusive equipment that does help his stats a little bit more. So there's a lot of things that he definitely gets off of the exclusive equipment. Gives him HP, make him a little bit tankier, and gives him other potential buffs to his kit. His imprint is going to be health, which will make him a lot tankier. But now, as far as his kit, it is very supportive when you look at knights, right? So the S1, nothing crazy, but nothing to laugh at either. Has a 50% chance going all the way up to 75% chance to dispel 1 buff. One of the options that you can do is for this to dispel 2 buffs, right? So you could potentially have a S1 that dispels 2 buffs, which does come in handy, right? There's a lot of buffs in the meta, and it can be used for dispelling buffs. The S2 being very, very good at pushing up an ally. It gives increased attack and critical hit rate, as well as increasing combat readiness, which is why he is typically going to be used in cleave teams, particularly BBK cleaves. You do tend to use them a lot, or even things like Vildred cleaves. But traditionally, Bazaar cleaves do use Tywin a lot, is because of this S2 that gives attack as well as critical hit chance. So pretty nice overall. Very, very, very solid S2, and it gives quite a bit of souls too, allowing you to build up souls and do several soul burns with the right team. Like Bazaar, Sedum, Tywin, and BBK, you're able to soul burn the Bazaar or the Sedum. You're able to soul burn both and the BBK. Oh, but you have to save souls for him. So it's usually Bazaar or Sedum and then soul burn for Tywin. And then you will have enough souls for BBK, since this does give 3 souls and this gives 2 souls. So it gives you 5 souls, which is quite a bit. It gives you just enough to soul burn with BBK. So pretty nice in that aspect. And then of course the S3, which is the other reason he's so good at setting up cleaves. AoE attack that decreases defense, increasing his own defense in case they do counterattack you. You will not die. So if they counterattack you, you will not die to the counterattack, because you will have a nice little increased defense. And you decrease their defense, setting up your BBK or whatever cleaver you're using for success, which is why you're typically building fast and effectiveness. He does need the soul burn to make the cleave work, because you want a soul burn after using the skill, setting up the decreased defense, giving yourself the extra turn, and then going in and pushing up your ally and giving them that nice little buff. So overall, pretty good option for cleave teams. he does help out for those type of cleave teams. But again, it's a little bit rough for cleave out there, right? We just talked about Politis being really strong against cleave teams. And he does have this S2 that can get interrupted by Politis, which could set up for a not so good day for you. He definitely has fallen off favor and doesn't see as much play. You can still use him for things like the Blue Expedition, since he is able to set up decreased defense against the boss and buff your team while tanking the Expedition, which is one of the reasons people actually really like to use him there for Expedition for high points, since he is able to support the team a lot. He's able to apply that increased defense to himself, and he's able to increase the attack and crit rate of himself as well as the ally. So pretty solid kit for that. And some people do also use him occasionally for Wyvern, although I don't think he's that great, right? So I overall definitely fallen off. Poor Tywin has definitely fallen off. I don't necessarily recommend him. I think there's better things to pull for that will help you in the future. But if you like the way he looks, you can definitely make him work in the different content. But that is it for both. As far as the artifact, I do want to quickly go over Politis' artifact. It's not great. And I have sadly pulled a lot of copies of it, so I might use it for fun, right? But the artifact looks like a very fun artifact. Nothing that's going to be like game breaking or even meta for that matter, but it's going to be knowledge seed, and essentially when you die or receive lethal damage, which basically means when you die, gives a random buff to all allies for 2 turns, right? But it's only a random buff. It's 1 buff, but it can be things like greater attack, defense, evasion, immunity, crit hit resistance. It's very random, and it has a very crazy condition. Of course, you can get the greater attack buff, but it's not realistic, right? For the most part, it's not realistic. It's not that good of an artifact. It's more for the memes. I don't think it's great. I personally would not use it. So that's my thoughts on it. It just feels like they're filling up the pool with more junk. All right, let's do a couple summons for Politis, and then we'll end the video. So again, TLDR, Politis should consider pulling. Make sure you have enough for limited. Very, very strong ceiling, high ceiling to be able to do a lot of things in the future, as well as has a really good matchup against cleave. Tywin has fallen off a lot, can still work for cleave teams, but should better things that are gonna be coming your way. But now let's try our luck at some summons. We got a Moonlight, which makes me sad because I know it can't be a 4-star, but it could be T-Surin, right? And I would not complain about getting a T-Surin. Bro, if this is a T-Surin, I would be so happy. Double Rose. Wow, that's crazy. Wait, that's actually kind of crazy. Wait, I couldn't skip the animation. You baited me! Ah! I got so excited, dude! I thought it was finally time for me to get T-Surin. Well, we got Troublemaker Cross it. I don't really have a slot for him, but I guess it's cool that we got a new one. I wish this was F Maya or T-Surin, man. I feel... Oh, man. At least it is new, right? So we can't complain there. We're getting another one. Dude, what are these MO rates? Too bad it's not... It can't be a 5-star, right? Champsy dupe. I kind of needed more dupes, but... No Politis. We're actually pretty deep in the Politis summons. Dang, that's a lot of purple sparks. That was a lot of purple sparks. That was kind of cool. I haven't seen purple sparks like that in a long time. This banner has been really, really weird to us for some strange, odd reason. But alright, let's see if we can continue the purple spark luck. No purple spark luck. It didn't come in when it mattered. But that's it. Very interesting summons though, to say the least. Hopefully your pulls went better than mine. We got a lot of roasts, which is interesting. We got a lot of like low odd things to happen, except actually pulling the unit. And we're kind of far away from pity, so that's gonna be a while before we're able to finish that off. Oh man, we're really far away from finishing pity. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope y'all enjoyed. Good luck on your Politis' pool. Hopefully they're better than mine. We at least did get something new, which is cool. But hopefully y'all's pools go better than mine. And that's all I got. And I will see y'all next time. Peace.